Yeah, let's do it now. So I am recording now, I think. Yes, it says recording. So yeah, good morning. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I am going to ask you to go through and do all of these, work through them. You know what I mean? See what it is, try it yourself. But I'm not going to ask you to post that to D2L. What I'm going to ask you to post to D2L is going to be if you stick on the home page and you run down past these, you will find past all these exercises, use the menu, you find that there's a green button here which says CSS Exercises. Now, this is a little bit more real because you're going to have to write some real code to go in there. So I don't want you to go and just do that straight up. I want you to work through these things first because you'll have to in order to know how to do the answers, unless you already know. Or I suppose there's lots of ways of finding out. You could ask each other, or you could Google or YouTube or whatever. But so, for example, if we press on that, we see these exercises come up, and you will have to press Start CSS Exercises. So this is what this is the code that I want you to do. All right, so here's the first one, right? What it's asking is it wants you to make the paragraph red. All right, so you would have to know a little bit about CSS to do that. Now, if you went here, then well, the next thing here is there's some others, but let's look at this. You would know maybe already that you could put some code inside the paragraph tags. You could put in there, you know, color equals. You could do that. That would be what we call inline CSS. Now, I'm not asking you to do that. Or you could notice because you're observant that this HTML has a head and a body, and that's the way that we do our HTML in this course. And then there's also two style tags, and the style tag is where you would put your CSS. And if you are still not sure, you could look at the hint and it says use the element selector, in which case you might say, oh, what's an element selector? Okay, so these are our elements. P is an element, H1 is an element, body is an element, HTML is an element. The element selector is just without the special codes around it. So P, like that, is the element selector. And then if you open up some curly braces, then you can write your CSS code. So your CSS code would just go there. First you say your attribute, and then you say your um, you put the result there. So color, what do we want? We want red. And if I check that code, we see the paragraphs now are changed to red. And so that's the kind of thing that I'm going to ask you to do with that, right? So there's our first exercise. You could do those 4 exercises. They wouldn't be very hard. I did the first one. What's this one? The color of the element ID equal para 1 to red. So the idea here is, I don't know if you've used these selectors before. The real trick here, so the color is going to be the same. I mean, you could have got the code from the other thing, right? You're going to see, you're going to do a color red, but what? But what, right? So okay, so the thing is, what does an ID look like? Now, I don't know if you remember from our course in CP1000, but when we do an ID, we use this as our way of doing the selector for the ID, right? Para 1. So we have hash as a selector for IDs, and we also do a little dot for a selector for classes. So this is an ID para 1. That should work. Color red. Let's see. So the other thing is, do you notice that we use the colon and the semicolon, right? We say what is it that we're going to change, and then we say what we're going to change it to. Click the code, and we see only this paragraph turns red. The other one doesn't, because this paragraph has this selector para 1. That the ID for that paragraph is para 1. Okay, so I'm going to do a few of these. You know, you'll have to go and do a little bit of how you say research for yourself, maybe to fill in the gaps, because I don't want to do it all for you. But you know, you get the
Excuse me.
idea. Yes,
What's the difference and best practices to use IDs and classes?
good question. So an ID will work on a single element. A class will work for multiple elements. So it could be that, for example, you have, well, here we have, right? So see, we have the same class is being used for more than one paragraph. This is a very good, actually, this example answers your question. You saw how ID was used in the previous one, right? Well, we might do this, right? We might say ID equals um, my head. So what we could do and well, actually, no, I should have had another paragraph. Sorry, let's do another one. Um, equals. Now, I'm sorry that it's taking me some time to do this. I'm not a particularly fast typist. But what we're going to do is we're going to see when we use IDs and when we use classes. So a class will work for multiple items. So for example, here I can just do dot. That's for the class. Color text, color text, and then I can do whatever color I want for that. I mean, let's keep it simple, right? We're just going to do colors. Um, so this color is going to be red again. Now for one of the for our my okay this paragraph will be black, and this paragraph, let's make it. So I'm going to use the ID, which is my p, and for that one, I'm going to do the color is going to be blue. Um, and then I've got one more, which is my head. And um, and the color there is, I don't know,
Can't we
green.
use IDs multiple times too?
Yeah, but why would you do that? So the thing is here, yeah, you could. Yeah, no. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. No, we can't use the same ID for more than one element. Good question. Yeah. So maybe I misunderstood the way you were
Can
saying
you
it.
try, please?
All right. But by the way, this is not real at the moment. This is you know what I mean, it's not working. But if for me to show you, I'd have to actually do it on a browser. So ID doesn't work that way. All right. How ID works, how what you're talking about is a class is for multiple elements, ID is for one element. So I know you don't believe me, so I suggest that you try it yourself.
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Yeah, try it in your browser. Sorry, this is not a browser, right? This is just but we saw it didn't make any difference anyways. So now this one was blue, but it wouldn't do anything the other way. It wasn't able to change it, as you saw. But this is not real HTML, right? This is a but it doesn't make any change. So that's what. But as I said, this is yeah. All right, so we use a class when we have several elements that we want to treat in the same way. We use an ID when we have one element that we want to treat in a certain way. So that's a very good question, and I hope that that's answered to your sort of satisfaction. Very good, thank you. So I'm just going to take another note of who's here because I know that some people just arrived. Right. So how much of this do you need me to sort of go through with you? What's this next one here? The color of the P and the H1 elements to red, group selectors to, again, you could use a class for this, right? Um, I don't know if you could use it for, yeah, I suppose we could try. I'm going to try and put these in the same class. I don't know, they're different kinds of elements. That's the problem, right? Class equal the R for red, right? And which one is the other one? All appease. All appease. Hmm. Well, if it's going to be all the P's, well, no, we don't need to do that. We just say the elements here. This is the easiest way to do this because it says all the H1s and all the P's. So the best way to do it is just to do all the H1s and all the P's. This will make all of them whatever the color is in this case. So we can have multiple types of elements together without using classes. But the thing is, when we were doing the classes, we were selecting some of the paragraphs. We weren't taking all of the paragraphs. This is taking all of the paragraphs, and this is taking all of the H1. And so there we get all the H1 and all of the paragraphs, but we don't get the H2. So that's kind of getting started on it. That's what I'd like you to do. Sort of go through those exercises, add an external. So we talk about external styles, internal styles, inline styles. Inline styles would be if I actually put the CSS inside the tag. We're not doing that. I'm not recommending that. And you can see when we've got a head, why would we? External styles, or sorry, internal styles, we put it in the head. So you're going to have two style tags here in the head, and then you go ahead with that. External styles, what happens is you create a new file, which you create at using your editor, and you save it as a .css, and then you put your code in there. But the code looks the exact same as the as it would if it were in an internal, and it's actually telling you here that you need to use the name of the file that you're going to put your CSS in is going to be called mystyle.css. I'm pretty sure that we did this in CP1000. So in this case, what you're going to do is you're going to, instead of having a style tag there, yeah, welcome, Omar. No problem. Instead of having a style tag there, you're going to put a link. And so your link is going to, and I think this might actually come up in the hint, does it? Yeah, there it is. You're going to need a link tag inside the head. And then the link tag, is, as it says, is going to have our I don't know if you've seen these before. So inside the head, you're going to have a link tag. And the link tag is going to, now, if you were doing this in a proper editor, the two tags would come in a pair like that, and it'd sort of be a bit more obvious. So then you're going to have to do your href is equal to, and you're going to say is equal to this, right? And then you're going to do the other attributes for it, like rel. I'm not going to do that for you. I'm going to ask you to sort of find that, and it shouldn't be too hard for you to sort of find it in, if you go back to the go back. If you go back,
We just have to write a style sheet, I think.
you have to create a style sheet. Yes. Oh yeah, inside the link you have to say rel is equal to style sheet. That's correct. And then you have to do the other bit. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let you sort of find that. But you're quite able to. I don't mind if you sort of help each other out on that, but I'm just going to leave you with that. So what you're going to be doing there is when it asks you to do an external, you don't use the style tags, right? You use the link tags. When it asks you to do internal, you're going to use the style tags. And I think that, yes, we did learn it in CP1000. And so, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. Very good. Thanks, Taha, that you remember that. Okay, so how many of these should you do for this exercise that I've got for you? What do you think? Let's not make it too onerous. Maybe you can go down to margin. So I'm just leaving you with how to, background, border, and margin. How does that sound, students? You
Good.
can so I will put a note into D2L now that that's what I'm expecting you to do, and without me sort of going ahead and sort of just